The Senate will come to order. Mr. Panetta, please call the roll.
Bridges. Buckner.
Excused.
Coleman. Cook. Quorum. Danielson.
Good morning.
Donovan. Finberg. Fields. Gardner. Janal. Gonzalez. Hanson. Heisey. Holbert. Hawkins Lewis.
Excused.
Kirkmeyer. Colker. Lee. Liston. Lundeen. Moreno. Patterson.
Here.
Priola.
Amy.
Rankin. Rodriguez. Scott.
Excused.
Simpson. Smallwood. Sonnenberg. Story.
Here.
Winter. Said it right. Yeah. Woodward. Zinzinger. Mr. President.
Here, with 32 present, 0 absent, and 3 excused, we have a quorum. Senator Gonzalez, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Members, please join me. Members and guests, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Approval of the journal. Senator Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the Journal of Thursday, February 18, 2021 be dispensed with and that the journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes having the motion is adopted. Senate Services.
February 19th, correctly printed Senate Bills 105, 106, 107, 108.
Committee reports.
February 17th, Mr. President, the Committee on Business, Labor, and Technology has had under consideration and has had a hearing on the following appointments and recommends that the appointments be confirmed. Members of the Special Funds Boards for Workers' Compensation Self-Insurers effective July 1st, 2020 for terms expiring July 1st, 2024. Deanne Pfeiffer of Lakewood, Colorado to serve as a manager or employee of self-insured employees in good standing and knowledge of risk management and finance, appointed. February 18th, Committee on Education. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 58 be amended as follows, and as so amended, be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. February 18th, Committee on Education. After consideration on the merits, the committee recommends the following. Senate Bill 29 be amended as follows, and as so amended, be referred to the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation.
Second reading of bills. Consent calendar. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Presidente. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes having the motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar, and Senator Gonzalez will take the chair.
Buenos dias. The committee will come to order and the court rule is relaxed. Will the clerk please read the title of the bill on the general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar?
Senate Bill 19 by Senators Colker and Simpson and Representatives Tipper and Rich concerning the authority of assessors to mail abbreviated notices of valuation on a postcard for property tax purposes.
Majority Leader Feinberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to refer Senate Bill 19 to the Appropriations Committee.
Second.
Senator Bridges, there are no seconds.
Madam Chair,
Majority Leader Fenberg, that is a proper motion. Majority Leader Fenberg.
No, it wasn't.
thank you, Madam Chair. I don't think it is a proper motion. I'm just deeply offended that a couple of hotshot freshmen are getting a bill on consent calendar right out of the gate.
Hey!
Madam Chair, I move for the adoption of the one bill on the consent calendar, which is Senate Bill 19, and there are no committee reports.
Well, I guess
I deemed
that
it
is
improper,
a
but
proper motion, I suppose. Is there any discussion on the bill on the consent calendar? I hear rumblings. The motion before the body is the adoption of the bill on the general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Y'all. The aye has it. The bill is adopted. Majority Leader Fenberg.
thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Hey, the ayes have it. The motion is adopted. The committee will rise and report.
Calendar's kind of in limbo. Why shouldn't second reading be in limbo?
Unanimously in second reading consent, it would pretty much be like staying or agreeing to sign a document.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Gonzalez.
Gracias, Presidente. The committee had a bill that I suppose we considered. Will the clerk please read the report?
Committee of the Whole report. Mr. President, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report it has had under consideration the following tax bills being the second reading thereof and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 19 passed. On second reading and order engrossed.
Wait.
Senator Gonzalez.
Gracias, Presidente. I move the report.
The motion is for the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? Mr. Majority Leader. Senator Sonnenberg. With 31 aye votes, only 2 no votes, 0 absent, and 3 excused, committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 019 passed on second reading, ordered and grossly placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Second reading bills. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself once again into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of general order, second reading of bills.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general order, second reading of bills, and Senator Gonzalez will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the court rule is relaxed. Mr. Pineda, will you please read the title to Senate Bill 70?
Senate Bill 70 by Senator Moreno, concerning the authority of... By Senator Moreno. Senate Bill 70, concerning the authority of a Board of County Commissioners to require the registration of businesses.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 70.
Is there any discussion on the bill?
It's right there, the last two letters.
There is an amendment at the desk. Will the clerk please read Amendment L001 to Senate Bill 70?
Amendment L001 to Senate Bill 70. Amend
Senator
printed.
Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L0001. Colleagues, Amendment L001 is the culmination of some of the discussions that we had in the local government committee. There was concern about whether or not this bill would allow counties to penalize businesses for not registering. That is certainly not the intent of this bill in any way. This is really about establishing a line of communication with businesses in unincorporated areas of the county and really offering assistance from the counties to those businesses. So L001, you'll see, adds to the exclusion in terms of the authority, this new authority that counties would have, the ability to collect a fine. So they do not have the ability to collect any type of fine that is associated with these registrations. So that means if a business chooses not to register, they will not be fined by a county. The other provision of this amendment is at the request of the Farm Bureau, just to make sure that, again, counties use this information for well-intentioned purposes, that they actually offer assistance to businesses. This is not meant in any way to create a registry that a county can then go use to, increase compliance or enforcement actions against any type of business. So it does create in the publishing of a registry that you wouldn't essentially provide that identifying information about the businesses on the registry. I ask for your support for L001.
Thank you for that overview, Senator Moreno. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is the adoption of the amendment L001. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. To the bill, Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, as I briefly described during the description of the amendment, again, this is about opening a line of communication with businesses in unincorporated areas of the county. We have tasked counties with providing a lot of assistance, whether that's from the federal government or the state government. This will allow them to better identify those businesses that may be in need of that relief and that assistance. I encourage your support for Senate Bill 70.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion is the adoption of Senate Bill 70. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title to Senate Bill 26?
Senate Bill 26 by Senator Moreno and Representative Ortiz concerning the eligibility of discharged LGBT veterans for specified state benefits.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 26. Colleagues, we had a good discussion about this bill in the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. This is really about honoring the service of all service members. Many of you may know that before Don't Ask, Don't Tell was instituted in 1993, LGBT folks were barred from serving in the armed forces. Don't Ask, Don't Tell did allow them to serve, but did not allow them to be who they are. The Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy was in effect for a long period of time, from 1993 through 2011. And again, colleagues, this is about ensuring that those who were discharged from the armed forces who didn't receive an honorable discharge because of their gender identity or their sexual orientation, that we honor their service as a state. We have done a number of things to honor the service of veterans at the state level. Everything from ensuring that they get access to hunting and fishing licenses to in-state tuition, to a proper burial in a military cemetery. This won't change anything for those service members at the federal level. They still won't get those federal benefits because they didn't receive an honorable discharge. But at least at the state level, they will receive what they are entitled to for sacrificing their time and their lives in service of this country. I encourage your support of Senate Bill 26.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the senator for bringing this. I have a couple of questions on the kind of technical nature of this. I don't have a problem at all with the concept of the bill, and most of the language I agree with. But members, if you look at page 2 of the bill, this is the introduced bill I'm looking at, lines 6 through 14. So here's the part that I think many of us will agree with. 28-5-103, discharge LGBT veteran. 1A, a person is a discharged LGBT veteran if the person, as determined by the Board of Veterans Affairs, was discharged other than honorably from the armed services due to the person's sexual orientation or gender identity or expression. I'm going to stop right there. I'm a yes vote. Makes good sense. Or statements, it's the next part. Don't really know what that means. Line 11, consensual sexual conduct. Okay. Consensual acts relating to the sexual orientation or gender identity or expression. Okay. Still okay. But now where I'm confused is now we get to line 12, and there's a semicolon there, not a comma. So now we're starting a whole new concept. We're now going to assign, as I read this status to somebody, because there's an or there, who disclosed statements or had conduct or had acts, which I'm assuming is any acts that were prohibited by the armed services at that time of discharge. So that's why I'd love maybe some clarification around that, because I don't see this last part, the end of line 12 through 14, having anything to do with somebody being LGBT. I see this as being somebody who was discharged because of, semicolon, and or, disclosure of statements, any conduct, or any acts that were prohibited by the armed services at the time of discharge. I don't think that's the intent of this bill, colleagues, and unless I'm misunderstanding it and need clarification, I'd ask that we consider an amendment just to strike that last little portion.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and appreciate the concern. I think what's important to remember is that at the time of someone's discharge, if it's essentially you were excluded from service because you were open and honest about who you are, that is grounds for a discharge. So that's what this language seeks to capture: the disclosure of statements, conducts, or acts that were prohibited by the armed services at the time of discharge. You even saying that you were gay was grounds for a discharge when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was in effect. That is what this captures. I think it's important that we also read the next two lines of the bill, because I think it serves as a way to limit the concerns that we heard just now. The next two lines of the bill say a person who was dishonorably discharged from the armed services is not eligible to be a discharged LGBT veteran. So if you were discharged for anything else, any other conduct, any other acts that were prohibited by the military other than your gender identity or your sexual orientation, you are not eligible under this bill. If you were discharged for lewd conduct of some kind, if you were discharged for substance abuse, for anything else, you are not eligible under this bill. This bill is narrowly tailored to making sure that the folks who were discharged because their conduct, their statements may have excluded them in the military simply for being who they are. That is the intent of this bill. That is what the language is specific to.
Senator Smallwood.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the good senator from Commerce City. And I appreciate that explanation, but it doesn't really address my concern of the language in the bill, because if we're concerned about statements, I get that. And we've addressed statements on line 10 without there being this whole additional section. So we've addressed that they were discharged due to their sexual orientation, their gender identity or expression. That's number one. Okay? Statements that the good senator just mentioned, that's now included. Consensual sexual conduct, that's now included. Consensual acts relating to the sexual orientation or gender identity or expression. So exactly like the senator said, if somebody even says something about it, that's already covered without the end of line 12 through 14. So I guess my question is, if we've got the fact that they have a sexual orientation or gender identity or expression covered, if we've got the statements covered, if we've got the sexual conducts covered, if we've got consensual acts covered, what else is it that we're trying to catch in this sort of catch-all, any other acts having nothing to do with a person's sexual orientation, gender identity, expression? We've now moved away from the LGBT conversation into a giant catch-all of anything. Disclosure of statements, conducts, acts prohibited by the armed services. Anything, regardless of and again, now we've drifted completely away, as I see it, from an LGBT conversation into any other conversation. So I have an amendment drafted up, and we can certainly consider dropping it and talking about it. I would love to know what other non-LGBT acts, conduct, statements, what are we concerned about?
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think what's important that is not lost in this conversation is that just because statements was referenced earlier in the bill, the language is different. The language that is being pointed to as not fitting within the scope or intent of the bill. Keep in mind on lines 12 and 13, it is the disclosure of statements, conducts, or acts. So earlier we addressed the other issues. However, if you disclosed your sexual orientation or your gender identity or any acts related to that identity, you were also discharged from service. So that is the piece that is important not to lose, that disclosure piece. But I agree that the language could be more clear, could make sure that it does tie back to sexual orientation and gender identity. And so, Madam Chair, I request a senatorial 5 while we work through that language.
The Senate will stand in a senatorial 5. is an amendment at the desk. Mr. Pineda, will you please read Amendment L002 to Senate Bill 26?
Amendment L002 to Senate Bill 26.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L002. Colleagues, we heard some discussion earlier about how the bill perhaps was not quite as clear, as crystal clear as it could be. So what this does is, in reference to the language that was pointed out on page 2, line 13, the new language would now be, or the disclosure of statements, conducts, or acts relating to sexual orientation or gender identity or expression that were prohibited by the armed services at the time of discharge. Again, just making it explicitly clear that that is what is intended. I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no discussion regarding the amendment, the motion is the adoption of Amendment L002. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Is there any further discussion? Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the senator from Commerce City bringing this bill. And I don't want to blow up the bill. The bill's well-intended. I most likely will be an aye on this bill, but I'm troubled, and we've already dealt with one issue here that the language didn't, it potentially was much wider than intended. I don't know, anybody here been a military defense counsel? Military defense counsel? No, Sheriff, I think you probably arrested them. Anybody been a military defense counsel? Oh, well, I'm a simple country lawyer, but once upon a time, I was a simple area defense counsel in the Air Force, and I know it will come as a shock to many of you. I'll have a little more to say about this on thirds, but it'll come as a shock to many of you, but in my time as the defense counsel, I defended LGBT service members and did so with a fair amount of success. I know it'll really come as a shock to you to know that, or to hear that as a military defense counsel, I was someone who took an existing rule structure and used it in every way possible to thwart the established authorities around me. I know that's shocking to you because I'm, a company man. So from that, I know some things about the discharge system, and there are 5 types of military discharge. And this is relevant to this discussion here in this bill. There is the honorable discharge. And the honorable discharge is the one that everyone wants, and the vast majority of service members serve honorably, and they get something called a DD-214, and it says honorable. There is the general discharge under honorable conditions. It might well have been possible, and by the way, while that discharge general under honorable conditions is considered honorable, it is not as favorable as the one that says honorable. Believe me, people do not want the discharge that says general under honorable conditions. And we don't really, and I can tell you from experience, there are people who may have been discharged for an act due to their orientation or expression that might have gotten a general discharge, and it's not really clear whether that's addressed here. And so I'm a little troubled that the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs didn't sort of clearly address that. Now I will say this, that a person who has a general discharge is overall and overwhelmingly going to get their veterans' benefits. It just is kind of a black mark on your 214. There is the other than honorable conditions discharge, and that is, I think, what is supposed to be addressed in 1A. Discharged other than honorably from the armed services. I think they're referring to a discharge under other than honorable conditions, which is an administrative discharge. The first three I've talked about are non-court-martial kinds of discharges. But an under other than honorable conditions discharge would have had to have been given to someone after a due process hearing. And as a result, it does deprive one of a good number of military benefits. Then there is something that is not addressed here called a bad conduct discharge. And if you want to know more about the military justice system, there are two kinds of court-martials. There are special court-martials and there are general court-martials. And special court-martials are court-martials of limited jurisdiction, roughly corresponding to what we would think of as county court and misdemeanor kinds of systems. Frankly, most of the cases involving some kind of misconduct that had an aspect, and not that I want to be careful about how I say this, not that the conduct, the orientation itself was misconduct, but if there was some aspect in the case having to do with that, and this might have been an assault or something like that, but a lot of those cases are going to be special court-martial cases. And if a discharge was awarded, it was a bad conduct discharge. I think the intent is to include those discharges down here in subparagraph B about dishonorably discharged. But it's not clear, and I can see a fair number of cases, not thousands, but you know, within the state of Colorado, given the numbers and so forth, but I can see 10 or 15 or some number of people with bad conduct discharges saying, well, I should be in category A up here. And others saying, well, no, you're dishonorably discharged. Well, they're not really dishonorably discharged, because that is only provided by a general court-martial, and it is the worst form of all discharges and deprives one completely of benefits. I have sent an email to the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs about the bill and said, what do you intend to do about bad conduct discharges? So I just want to say, I don't want to slow the bill down. This is the first chamber. It's got to come up on thirds. But we may need to deal with that category. Maybe you're going to point me to something in the regulation that says, oh, no, it falls there. And if so, we need that in our legislative history here. We need to discuss that. So I apologize for my meandering down the memory lane of my legal and military justice career, but as I say, I know you will be shocked to find that one time earlier in my life I would have used an established set of rules and processes to thwart those in power who wish to impose their will upon my client constituents, something I do very little of anymore. But thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to the simple country lawyer from El Paso County, no need to apologize. I actually really do appreciate your expertise on this issue, and it's nice to know that some things don't change. I will say, again, in appreciation, honestly, for your, frankly, for your work on civil rights, defending these veterans, and if there are issues that we need to correct, I'm committed to doing that. I'm sure the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs is listening, and they worked very closely on drafting this bill. And so if there are any discrepancies or issues we need to correct going forward, we will absolutely do that. Thank you for your feedback.
Senator Fields.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in strong support for this Senate Bill 21026. And the reason I do is because there's a long-standing history of discrimination policy in the armed force that's based on the LGBTQ community. This bill is simple because it's about parity. Some people should not be pushed out of having the benefits that they need or to be rejected for the benefits they should receive because of their sexual orientation. This bill is about acceptance. It's about tolerance. It's about sensitivity. It's about 2021. My dad was a soldier. And I don't know who he served with when he served in Vietnam and Korea. I'm not quite sure, but whoever he was serving with, they defended democracy for the United States of America. This is a good bill, and it sends the right message that the state of Colorado appreciates tolerance despite someone's sexual orientation. This bill costs the state absolutely nothing. But it sends a clear message that we want to be fair and we want to be just. So I ask for an aye vote on Senate Bill 21026.
Seeing no further discussion, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 026. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is adopted. Majority Leader Fenberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
The motion is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come back to order. Mr. Panetta, please add Senator Buckner to the roll call. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee of the whole begs thee to report it had under consideration the following attached bills being the second reading thereof and makes the following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 70 as amended, Senate Bill 26 as amended, passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Gonzalez.
Gracias, Presidente. I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion is for the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 33 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 2 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 070 as amended, Senate Bill 026 as amended, passed on second reading, ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Announcements. Senator Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Mr. President. Maybe not so much a moment of personal privilege as much as a question around all of the bow ties that I'm seeing and all of the bolo ties that I'm seeing in the chamber today.
The good senator from Denver will be fined accordingly because that does not fall under the purview of moment of personal privilege.
A parliamentary inquiry? It's personal.
Announcements. Senator Phillips.
Good morning, Mr. President, colleagues. It's not on your calendar, but I do want to remind the Senate Health and Human Service Committee that we will have two bills that we'll be hearing on Monday. That would be Senate Bill 79 and Senate Bill 90 at 1:30 in Senate Committee Room 357.
Further announcements. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we will have some bills to read across the desk later this afternoon. You do not need to be here for any of that. Mr. President, I move that the Senate recess until 11 a.m. today.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed no. The ayes have it and the Senate will stand in a recess until 1100 hours today.